Emma sat by the window of their small hostel room, the one with the cracked sill and the faint smell of jasmine that drifted in every evening from the courtyard. Her eyes were on the orange sky, but her mind wasn't there. It was somewhere deeper, somewhere that only she seemed to know. Mary lay on the bed, a psychology textbook open across her chest, half asleep, the words blurring into dreams about Freud and memory and emotion. The room was silent except for the faint hum of traffic outside and the lazy creak of the old ceiling fan that swayed just slightly, like it too was tired of spinning. They had been roommates for 2 years now. Both studying psychology, both considered top of their class, though everyone knew Emma was the sharper one. Brilliant, intense, always a little too aware. She had this way of talking about the mind as if she was dissecting her own. People don't really think, she'd say. They only react. We're all machines pretending to feel. Mary would laugh and toss a pillow at her, telling her to stop being so dramatic. But Emma would just smile that small, knowing smile, like she saw something Mary didn't. Their friendship was a strange thing. Close, inseparable even, but lopsided in ways no one ever mentioned aloud. Mary was warmth. Soft, kind, easy to like. Emma was the storm. Clever, unpredictable, impossible to ignore. They moved through campus like opposites drawn by some invisible magnet. Emma, tall and sharp-eyed, always walking a few steps ahead. Mary, smaller, gentler, always catching up, always listening. Professors loved them. Students admired them. But behind the admiration, there was something else. People whispered about how Emma never smiled at anyone else, how she didn't talk to anyone outside of Mary, how she lived like the rest of the world didn't exist. Some said she was arrogant. Others said she was lonely. Mary didn't believe either. To her, Emma was just different. They met on their first day at the university, in a lecture hall filled with the smell of chalk and nervous ambition. Emma had walked in late, sat in the front row, and corrected the professor's definition of cognitive dissonance before the end of the class. Everyone stared. Mary, sitting 3 rows behind, couldn't decide if she was impressed or terrified. Later, in the cafeteria, Emma sat beside her without asking and said, "You take notes too neatly. It's like you're scared of making mistakes." Mary blinked, unsure whether to be flattered or insulted. That was Emma. Blunt, strange, and utterly sure of herself. From that day they became inseparable. They studied together, ate together, walked home together. Mary's world slowly rearranged itself around Emma's. It wasn't that Emma demanded it. She just filled the air in every room she entered. But Emma's world was smaller than it looked. She rarely spoke of her family, except once when she mentioned that her mother was a painter who used to forget she had a daughter for days. Her father was irrelevant. When she said that, she smiled, but her hands trembled slightly. Mary didn't ask again. She learned early that Emma didn't like questions. She liked control. And in their friendship, control always belonged to her. Their days followed a rhythm. Morning lectures, afternoon coffee in the psychology department courtyard, late-night study sessions under the flickering hostel lamp. Sometimes, Emma would talk for hours about the human mind, her voice soft and hypnotic. "You know what's funny, Mary? Everyone studies the mind to understand others. I study it to understand why people can't be honest with themselves, why they lie just to feel loved." Mary would listen, a little unsettled but fascinated. There was something magnetic about Emma's intensity. How she could look at you for so long you forgot how to breathe. One evening, after a long day of lectures, they walked back through the quiet university lawns. The air was cool, heavy with the scent of rain. Mary reached up to touch a low branch, smiling. "I think I'm starting to like this semester," she said. Emma looked at her, eyes narrowing. "Starting to?" "Well, I don't know," Mary laughed. "It feels like things are calmer. We're learning a lot. You're not fighting professors anymore." Emma smirked. "That's because I've learned there's no point arguing with people who think they're right." "You're impossible." "No," Emma said softly. "I'm inevitable." They both laughed, and for a moment it felt simple again. Two friends sharing jokes under dim streetlights. But simplicity never lasted long around Emma. The next week, a small change crept in. Emma started canceling their coffee breaks. She began staying late in the library, sometimes disappearing until midnight. When Mary asked, Emma would just shrug and say, "Just reading. You wouldn't like it." The more Mary tried to reconnect, the further Emma drifted. Yet when they were together, Emma clung tighter than ever. One night, as they studied in silence, Emma suddenly looked up. "Do you ever feel like people don't exist when you're not looking at them?" Mary frowned. "What do you mean?" "Like, maybe you make them up. Maybe the world is just your imagination keeping you company." "That's a creepy thing to say," Mary whispered, half laughing. Emma smiled faintly. Creepy, but maybe true. Days blurred. Exams approached. The walls of the psychology department were plastered with project deadlines. Emma grew restless. She started skipping meals, forgetting sleep. Her notebooks filled with strange scribbles. Thoughts about control, reality, perception. Once, Mary flipped through a page and froze. Scrawled across it in jagged pen were the words, "Love is a form of ownership." When she asked about it, Emma just said, "It's research." Then came the presentation day. Their topic was The Illusion of Self, a study in personality theory. They were meant to present together. But that morning, Emma didn't show up. Mary waited in the hall, heart pounding. The professor called her name twice before she stepped onto the stage alone. Her voice trembled as she began, but she did it. She finished the presentation. The class clapped, some even cheered. But when she returned to the hostel that evening, Emma was there, sitting by the window, staring into the dark. "You did well," Emma said flatly. "You watched." "I always watch." There was something in her tone, not anger, not jealousy, but something colder. "I thought you weren't coming," Mary said softly. "You didn't call." "You didn't wait," Emma replied. "I waited all morning," Mary whispered. Emma looked at her, eyes sharp, voice low. "No, Mary. You performed. You proved you don't need me." That night, silence filled the room like fog. Mary wanted to speak, but something in Emma's stillness scared her. She turned off the lamp and lay down. 4 hours she couldn't sleep. Just before dawn, she woke to find Emma sitting on the floor beside her bed, staring. "Emma," she whispered. "Why are you up?" "I was just thinking," Emma murmured. "You talk in your sleep, you know. You said my name." Mary didn't know whether to laugh or be afraid. "That's weird." "No," Emma said softly. "That's connection." After that, things changed. Emma became both distant and possessive. She would walk Mary to class, wait outside lectures, follow her to the library. When Mary tried to go out with other classmates, Emma would suddenly fall ill or claim she needed help studying. "You're my only real friend," she'd say. "I don't trust anyone else." And Mary, kind-hearted and guilty, would stay. But guilt slowly turned into unease. One afternoon, while Mary was in class, she realized she had left her phone in their room. She ran back, but when she opened the door, she froze. Emma was sitting on her bed, holding the phone, scrolling through messages. She looked up unbothered. "You should change your password," she said. "It's too easy." "Why are you?" "I wanted to see who you talk to when I'm not here." "That's not okay." Mary snapped, trembling. Emma's face softened, almost childlike. "I just don't want to lose you." Mary didn't answer. She just took the phone and left. That night she cried in the bathroom quietly, not wanting Emma to hear. But Emma did hear. And she stood outside the door, listening, tears sliding silently down her own face. Because beneath the control, beneath the sharpness, there was fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear that Mary would one day walk away like everyone else had. Weeks passed in tension. Mary grew quieter, more cautious. Emma grew more erratic, swinging between affection and cruelty. Sometimes she'd bring Mary coffee at dawn, whispering, "You're all I have." Other times she'd snap, accusing her of lying, of wanting to leave. The hostel walls felt smaller every day. Their studies continued, but even psychology couldn't explain what was happening between them. Two minds tangled so tightly that neither could breathe. Then one evening something broke. Mary returned from the library to find Emma gone. Her books were scattered, her notes torn. On the table was a small, folded paper. It read, "If the world disappears when I close my eyes, maybe I'll finally be free." Panic clawed at Mary's chest. She ran through the campus, calling her name. At last, she found her by the old psychology building, sitting on the steps, staring at nothing. "Emma!" Mary gasped, dropping beside her. Emma turned, her eyes red but calm. "I wasn't going to do anything," she said softly. "I just wanted to know if you'd look for me." Mary burst into tears. "Of course I'd look for you. You're my friend, Emma. You matter." For a long time, Emma said nothing. Then, quietly, she whispered, "You always save me, Mary. But one day I'll have to save myself." After that night, something shifted. Emma began seeing the university counselor. Mary went with her the first few times, waiting outside while Emma talked. Slowly, the edges of her obsession softened. She started joining study groups, laughing again, sleeping again. It wasn't perfect, it never would be. But it was something. Healing wasn't sudden. It was slow, fragile, like the first light after a long storm. By graduation, they were different people. Still friends, but freer. On their last day in the hostel, Emma packed her things quietly. "Do you hate me?" she asked suddenly. Mary shook her head. "No, Emma. I just understand you now." Emma smiled faintly. "Then you're the only one who ever did." She reached out and hugged her. A soft, trembling hug that carried both apology and gratitude. When she left, the room felt lighter and emptier at once. Years later, Mary would become a therapist. She'd sometimes think of Emma when she talked to her patients about love, fear, and the need to control. She never told their story, but she carried it in her. A reminder that sometimes the line between affection and possession is drawn not in cruelty, but in pain. And somewhere in another city, Emma walked through a crowded street, sunlight in her hair, smiling faintly at strangers. She was still a little strange, still lost in thought, but different now. Grounded, learning to live outside her own imagination. Sometimes she'd pause and think of Mary, and whisper under her breath, "Thank you." Because in the end, they both learned what psychology never taught them. The mind can study itself endlessly, but the heart only heals when it learns to let go.